Dude, it worked. It worked nice. Sabajo, sabajo, everybody. I hope you guys. I'm hoping. Well, everything hopefully should be. Blah, blah, blah. Start over. Good morning, sabajo. Majid, sabah al khair, ahlan, Davin Davis. Good morning, man. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well, and we are live. El Josa, hey man. A little bit flustered. I don't know why I'm having a little bit of a interesting. Ahlan, Majid, ahlan. Allah يخليك. Um, it's an interesting day. So obviously it's Saturday, the 13th of March, 2021, and this month has okay. So we're almost halfway into this month, and we've already had a lot of announcements, a lot of launches, a lot of things coming up, and they're not done. There's a lot more coming in at the end of March. I promise that much. That at least on the channel here. My hope is that we'll be able to cover obviously everything. Hey, we got another Tariq in the chat. Hey, Tariq in there. Hey, TK. So good morning. So Tariq is Tariq is my name as well, but Tariq is in the chat. Thank you, Majid, always. So yes, sorry, first time I've seen Tariq or Tariq in the chat. So I'm very it's exciting to see somebody else. ER 1980, good morning, sabaho everybody. And so I can say this much: if I count in my head correctly, I can probably say this: there's probably going to be at least 4, 5, maybe 5 different other announcements coming up by some like decent announcements by the end of this month that are things that I'm still working on, trying to kind of make sure kind of to work in there. DGNX is there. Good morning. Good morning. D-Trey's asking a quick question. So what do you think of better purchase, the V60, the Xperia 1 Mark II, or the Motorola Edge Plus? Headphone jacks and expandable storage are a main consideration. And since you're kind of considering the V60 and the Xperia 1 Mark II, so it depends on what you're looking for from the price point. But if I would say, if you have access to all of these 3 devices, I personally would probably say the more well-rounded one that I think most. I think you'll easily be able to kind of get the pictures and everything out of it. I think like the V60 will be probably a little bit more general, more user-friendly because of the UI elements and the way the setup is gone. If you want for camera, I think the Xperia 1 Mark II with the alpha influenced camera that's built into it, I feel like still performs much better. And now with the fact that you can use it as an external monitor to a DSLR or other devices, I feel like it just got a little bit of a leg up. Although they both have very nice headphone jacks and they both have expandable storage and of course both wireless charging, great. The V60 obviously is a great, large format display, massive battery, headphone jack, all the good things, of course. So hopefully that gets in there. Gary's in there as well. Good morning. EGNX says, I like the beard and it's well presented. May I ask, how do you maintain it? Simple. Literally, I mean, beard oil, basically balm in there as well to be able to kind of keep it moisturized. But it's all about maintenance every morning, and of course, making sure that you just kind of get used to it. It literally becomes part of you once you build it up. And the short answer is, it's not an entire beard; it's literally just a goatee. But because it's so large in the sense of the way it expanded, it actually fits and it looks more. It fills up the side. So if you kind of look at it from the back, it's actually there's not much in there. So it's easier to handle for me from a daily maintenance, but the natural color kind of just built it on its own. I was never really intending to have it as a full beard, but it did end up taking a life of its own, actually literally becoming the brand of the channel. Digital Slang, hey man, good afternoon. I hope you guys are doing well. Oh man, ER is doing in there. Dondi, sorry, Dondi. How you doing? TK, new video coming, TK Bearded Essentials. I keep wanting to do something. So Davin's asking, like, why don't we just do a Beard Essentials video for this? I'm not sure if it will really kind of like, I realize that for us, this is something we could totally do on like a Saturday morning with tech where we all chit chat and talk about it. But I'm not sure if it's something that if we put it out, that it'll actually make people feel, like I didn't subscribe for that, or this is part of what it is. So it's more of on that side of the thing, or maybe even I should just start more like make it into like an Instagram or, kind of a beard lifestyle kind of a thing, a morning routine. Oh, dude, thank you. Appreciate it. Goku all the way, as you can imagine. And actually been hiding Goku. There's sorry, other side. There's a Goku sitting right there. If you guys can see his eyes, this the guy used to be back in the bigger poster up there. Uh, Yannick, dude, I'm definitely down for it. I need to figure out how to get better at those type of shots because this is obviously not the environment I would be able to do all of this. This is more in the bathroom, which surprisingly is actually behind the wall right there. That's where it is for me. Got a life of its. It, Gary, so Gary's like saying, sorry, hi, Davin. So Gary's saying is, obviously Tiki's beard has a life of its own. And believe it or not, when I was doing the Sony event and we were in the middle of like pre-check and everything like that, they kept telling me that this is how the way they were telling me that I was in focus, they kept saying, your beard looks clean. And basically, like it's clear for them to be able to see it. And it was never referencing me. They were referencing the beard. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe should I, like at this point, should give it a name or something? Or like, I don't know. It was in focus, but I was out of focus or something. One of those things. But yes, it has become on its own, all on its own. Uh, um, just for man, yeah, argan oil keeps the beard in shape. Absolutely. There's specific beards that are made in there, and there's also specific beard wash that you're also supposed to use. So it's not like regular shampoo. You don't usually use regular shampoo or soap to wash it, and that also helps maintain the moisture in it, and it doesn't become so dry and brittle. Because longer hair, especially when it's turning white, is not as healthy. So the white hair, unfortunately, loses a lot of the pigmentation. And every once in a while, when I'm actually cleaning it, I always find like these hairs that are turning from black to white, and in that transition, they turn orange. So I always find like orange hairs every once in a while. Uh, okay. So there was a new Xiaomi. Yes, no. Xiaomi is definitely going flying to LA in 2 weeks. Oh wow, hey man, good morning. Well, welcome to LA. You're gonna have great weather. We barely get any rain. Um, they have adjusted well. If they have, oh, okay, I think he's responding back there. Greg is in the chat. Hey, man, good morning. It's weird. It's weird. Greg, sorry, here, Greg is in the chat as well, and Greg's saying he gets the orange hair. It's a weird transition. I don't know why the show is starting with hair, and of course now that I have that, I also have the Dragon Ball cup now. I don't know if you guys saw that video. I did that one with the new Dragon Ball. The other cup, unfortunately, got destroyed, so I don't longer have the Goku and Vegeta cup that we used to use for the longest time. So DJ Annex is saying I bet you look good, clean shaved as well. Heads up if you want to see TK's. uh, yeah, I know. I get it, Majid. I get it. I'll see if I'll double check on that. I didn't see the announcement this morning about Huawei. I didn't see that one. But yeah, no, a lot of things going on this week. There's a lot of I actually put out about 5 videos this week, and I know it wasn't as much as I normally put out. It was more of a cluster of videos around the ROG Phone 5, and then of course, yesterday I was planning on trying to put out a video for the ROG Phone 5 gaming video, but what happened to me is, and I don't know, just a little bit of BTS in the back up here. Production for videos, anytime you're producing one video, so most creators that you guys watch or you guys see what they're doing, typically work on one video at a time. They work and produce one video at a time. They're not producing multiple videos of the same content. So an example for me on the ROG Phone 5, although some of you guys might have noticed that, and basically you may have seen the video on my channel, but I produced another video that went up also a little bit earlier than that on XDH channel, and that was also another long video. And then there was another video on my Arabic channel that also came up at the same day. So for the ROG Phone 5, although it seems like I produced one video, in reality I produced 3 videos, and that takes a long time. And the same thing kind of went around for the Find X3 Pro. Now that one I didn't produce anything for the XDA channel. I think they were going to cover that on their own. But producing 2 separate videos in both languages, editing them separately, and they're not copies of each other. It's not like that one video dubbed. It's an entirely separate video. I actually purposely shoot them separately so that I never have a copyright concern coming in from the algorithm on the platform, where it recognizes 2 videos that are within a certain stretch as in copies of each other. I don't want to get into that because of the concerns of the violating any kind of rules and so on. But short answer is, yeah, even though it seems like I may not have produced as much, I did produce about 5 videos. And for 3 days in a row, and of course, we had the live stream on Thursday night with Juan Carlos and Isa Rodriguez, if you guys haven't had a chance to catch it up. And Joey B is asking if I actually use Chromebooks. Yes, I use the Pixelbook Go is my Chromebook to work with, and then we also use another one made by Acer for my son. That's his daily computer for schooling and access to those. So yes, Chromebooks are literally lifesavers when it comes down to basically long battery life, functionality, and of course access to Android apps. So it's a great companion to your Android smartphone. Um, but the thing I was trying to kind of come back to is the so for Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night, because of the three things I was running at the same time, I literally got maybe about 3.5 or 4 hours worth of sleep because as you guys probably already know, I wake up early, and it's part of how I am. So even if I sleep late, I still wake up early, and then uh, yes, yes. And so the thing is, by Friday morning, seriously, I was literally out. I was out of energy. There was just no um, endurance in me for me to be able to basically focus enough to be able to produce again a gaming video that could potentially be somewhere around the 10 to 15 minutes because of the content that I wanted to cover for it. It's not just talking about gaming in the sense of turning on a game and showing it, which is what I do in my essentials videos. Which also, thank you again for everybody for the comments last time on the essentials. So that um, I wanted to kind of put them as the TK essentials in the title, like saying basically like the Oppo Find X, the Oppo Find X3 Pro TK essentials. It didn't sound like it jived well, so I just put in basically. I kept the essentials with the essentials, and I'm probably going to create a playlist called the Essentials video. So in those videos, I typically show you obviously the performance, so you get it kind of a good glimpse of how the device handles this specific game, what maybe max settings this game is performing at. But what I'm going to do for the ROG Phone 5 is I want to actually go through the thermal part of it, that the consistency and frame rate. I also want to make sure that, it's something that how long does it last on a full charge with a battery, when you're playing games for, let's say, 2 to 3 hours at a time. Those are things that I feel like gamers that are looking for a smartphone like that the ROG Phone 5 are considering. Those are things that they worry about. Sound quality, experience with the display. How does the speakers compare? Is it better with the speakers? Is it better with the headphones? How does it work with a controller like the Kishi? Do the speakers still sound right? Does it fit? Those are things that I feel like a lot of people, if they're considering this type of phone, would want to know. So that's the goal for that video, and I'm going to work on that as well. I'm also working on if you guys probably already saw on Thursdays, we're talking about the wireless Go Mic 2 from Rode. Both Juan and I got access to these guys, and they are absolutely sublime. The 5 videos I produced, all were recorded using this. So that was really, really nice. Greg's going to be driving. Yeah, man, be careful. Be careful. Oh, Donald is in the chat as well. YouTube alerted me just a few minutes ago. I'm glad that one at least is working. I'm really happy that it's. I'm really happy that it actually kind of worked out as well. And Majid, I really appreciate that the cameras are. You're liking the cameras as well. That's very, very nice. Yeah, no, definitely. So here's the thing. Daily Driver right now. I can tell you guys one of the two. Okay, I'll say this. I can say one of the devices that I'm using, and that's obviously going to be the Find X3 Pro. That's it's replacing, or it's basically it has replaced my Find X2 Pro in the sense of the daily driver from a functionality standpoint. I feel like there's enough of an upgrade on the Find X3 Pro over last year's Find X2 Pro that I felt like it kind of does merit to be, I need to basically also put it through its paces when it comes down to the camera. That's the other thing I want to do. I want to do a video review of the cameras. Be it, consider it if it's a gimmick or if it's not a gimmick. Realistically, that microscope camera that we have on here truly presents us an interesting approach to photography. And I'm not talking about photography, about subject photography. I'm talking about basically, like creating wallpapers, unique wallpapers that you can never, ever almost find online. Like these little tiny, in the backyard. And one of the pictures I was showing in the video, let's see if I can share that with you guys real quick here. It was basically a picture where I was able to get, like, seriously, a really nice crystallized image. And it's hard to explain it, without kind of showing it to you guys. And it's obviously not going to look the best. So here, this picture that you guys are looking at right there is a picture of a brick in the backyard. It's me putting the camera on the actual sensor and I'm zooming into it. And it's creating these little things that we probably would never see. And that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people may not notice. Telephotos are great. Cameras are great, wide angle lenses and so on. But I feel like the microscope sensor, or the microscope sensor that we have here with the ring light around it, really opens up a new feature. Now, Is it going to stay? Is it going to happen again? Oppo obviously will have to make a decision on what they want with this device in the next series, in the Find X4 and so on. But where we are right now, I feel like it's a good experimentation in the sense of that feature being a new feature. But they gave us also two new options where it's two 50 megapixel sensors, a wide angle lens and an ultra wide. So those are big things for us that we normally don't get. But they also did another thing where they kept the color calibration between the lenses or the sensors the same, so that it doesn't feel like you're taking pictures with multiple cameras when you're doing like a wide angle lens. Suddenly the colors go muted on some devices. Here it actually looks really good, and it stays great all the time. And that's one of the things that I always appreciate about what we get from Oppo's cameras. And one of the reasons why it made me appreciate the Find X2 Pro was the way the cameras worked. And I'm pretty sure if Matt is in the chat, obviously he'll exactly back that up if you've ever used it. It's one of the best options available realistically as far as Android, and it really makes me very intrigued to see what we see coming in from let's say later on when OnePlus makes the announcements on their devices. Because if we saw what we saw last year, the Find X2 Pro was somewhat of a heavy inspiration into what we saw with the OnePlus 8 Pro. So that's a big factor, and I feel like a lot of us appreciated that. Not on the sensor, but definitely on the technologies that we get with the display. Chemi's in the chat as well. Hey man, good morning. Chemi's saying that basically the front-facing camera on your review looks like an oil painting somehow. The blemishes, the beautification was at max, I think. It does have beautification on the front-facing whenever you're taking pictures on it on by default. And I will make sure to take some images with and without. I typically don't like to turn on beautification. It's not a feature that I feel like we'll be able to improve on this thing, Sorry, I don't know where that came from. But yes, what I meant to say essentially is I typically turn it off. It's not one of the things I usually keep it on. Davins with I agree with you, Juan and Isa, on the live stream on the live stream with Oppo. I feel like with every year their phones are limited edition to keep things unique. And it's a big part of what they do. The Find X, the original Find X obviously was a very different device from what you saw with the Find X2 Pro. I mean, when that came out, everybody was like, well, what happened to the mechanical pop-up camera system, the color, the gradient, and so on? But they did it right. I feel like they did it really nice last year with the vegan leather back. That make it really nice. You get that orange with the gold tones in there. There was a green version of it. I think there was a gray one. It gave us a very unique, and it felt very much like I felt like a direction that I felt like Oppo would definitely be consistently going for. What we see this year is a slight shift. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to get a vegan leather option. We don't know, obviously, but they could still potentially release different versions of it. This is just the launch options. And there's basically a mirror finish and a matte finish. Matte finish, obviously, I feel like it's a little bit easier to work with if you're going to use it without a case. But if you have a case on it, I feel like the mirror finish is not bad. It's just it's a very challenging phone to take a picture of. Let's just say that because 90% of the time, because of the reflection, you literally end up basically seeing the reflection, and it focuses on that your camera unless you're using a DSLR. So it's one of those things you kind of work on that. Take me. Okay, so I think we have a few PUBG gamers here, and a few guys that there are in there as well. But again, at the end of the day, I think Oppo is always going to give us the best that they feel like obviously is available. Is the micro lens a gimmick? To a certain point, I feel like it's definitely more of a novelty camera, right? It's not a camera you're going to use all the time, but it's a camera that you would appreciate if you're there. Like the one thing that drove me crazy was, and I posted this, I think, on Twitter and as well as Instagram, the camera can see the pixels on the display. That's how deep that it can actually get. Like I put it on the watch, on the Oppo watch that I have, and I basically wanted to see how does it look. And the reality is that was crazy. That was crazy. Like the ability of seeing pixels on the display without having, well, obviously it is a microscope lens, but without having to put on like a separate entire microscope and all is very, very cool. And I feel like for like a background or an image or a sample of something like that, this is something that is unique that no other smartphone can provide it. Are you going to buy it just for that lens? Probably not. You're probably going to get it because of the primary shooters that you get there. The camera modes, the movie modes that we have in here are very, very nice. But Uh, uh, oh, Remo Tube. Ahlan, ahlan. Man, we're getting a lot of cool. Okay, good. Welcome to everybody. iPhone 12 Pro Max or Oppo Find X2 Pro? Oh, Mehmet, that's a good question. But it's also a very polarizing question, right? I mean, if you're team iPhone, if you're team Android, it's going to obviously it'd be an auto answer for one of the two. Um, right now, with the flexibility that you get, I feel like the Oppo Find X3 Pro gives you a little bit more. And what I mean by no is that more, I mean by the functionalities of what you're getting with it, the control within the camera, the native camera application, the filters that you have built in there, all the other options that you get there. And I feel like it still is a better choice for me, at least. Again, if I'm an Android user, that's kind of where I'm going to gravitate. Cameras on Apple devices, I feel like are great. I love the fact that their videos do really well. I don't like their photography as much as I like Android, like some of the smartphones that we've seen. So they're both great. So I'll start with the base. They're both great cameras. If you have to choose, it really comes from where they're. If you're more of an iOS user, you're probably going to gravitate towards iPhones because that's where you're comfortable. On Android, I love using the default camera apps because you get so many more functionalities built into it. Oppo's done a lot of good things, especially with ColorOS 11, and a lot of them are implemented here. We're up to 11.2 on the Find X3 Pro. It's very nice. The Realme 7X Pro or the OnePlus Nord. Armandeep, I would probably ask you a question. Which Nord are we talking about? Is it well, actually, like if you said Nord, you're probably talking about the 765 Nord. I'd probably go with the 760 with the Nord. The Nord has a little bit more. It just speaking actually with since we're talking about the Nord, if you guys have a OnePlus Nord, if you guys saw the video that I pushed out on that, they had a video. They did release the Android 11 update for the OnePlus Nord, but it seems like they pulled it back because of some concerns. Some users have had problems when they've installed it. The best way whenever you install an Android update that feels like it's not 100% baked, if you've ever had that problem, is to try to do a reset. So back up your data using OnePlus Switch, do a full backup of that, and then of course, reinstall and then reset the device and restore your data. So hopefully that should fix it. But that was something that I saw this morning. Saw some stuff in there. Matt Tyler, Davin. Oh, hey, Matt, he's in there. Good morning. Just dropping in, stuck at work. Yeah, see, it always happens. Every once in a while, Matt's schedule always gets a little bit busy. Armandeep says, I purchased the Realme 7 Pro for a few days ago, which is a great option still. There's nothing wrong with it. This answer that I gave you prior to that obviously was if you're deciding between the two, not necessarily you already kind of bought one and you should change. If you've already invested in it, you're not going to be able to get the same amount of money if you try to sell it. So you have to also keep that in mind when you're considering changing devices. It's at the end of the day, whatever you're buying should be based on what you're able to and what you feel comfortable getting. Okay. Virla Das is asking, what is the time right now? So for me, if you guys are trying to figure that part out, it is almost, no, it's 11:01 a.m. on Saturday. So I'm sure depending where you are in the world, if I'm not mistaken, I think more closer to India and closer to the Asian communities. I think it's more closer to the evening into the morning on Sunday. So that's what I've heard from before. Oh, Jermaine is in the chat as well. Hey, good morning, Jermaine. Viraldas is saying, I purchased the Galaxy S21. I'm not sure what the question is, Virla. If you're saying if I purchased it, if you already bought it, then I'm not sure what the question is. If you can maybe explain that a little bit. So John Keener is jumping in with the ROG phone. So I'll say this much. We still use the ROG phone too. You guys know, if you follow the channel, obviously, most of you guys, Aditya knows, everybody in the chat will probably know. I've used the ROG phone 2 for years. I purchased the Tencent edition, the Chinese edition version of it. I didn't buy the US version at the time, mostly because it was just not announced. Back then, Asus, for some reason, released it in Asia as far as the Tencent edition. I think it was almost a month and a half before they released it into the European market. So we've still used it. We have it. It got updated. We have all the updates in there. It broke. The display broke. I replaced the display, and now it's delaminating and so on. Muhammad, as Alan from Abu Dhabi, it's 11:02 p.m. in Abu Dhabi. Wow. Well, masal khair, Muhammad, masal khair. Good evening, good evening. So for everybody that I know, I say sabaho all the time. So sabaho is good morning. Good evening is masal khair. So good, evening. I don't know how to translate it. It just literally means good evening, literally. But yeah, no, the ROG Phone 2 has been serving us really well. And again, I feel like the ROG Phone 5 took what I loved about the 2 and improved it. The 3 last year, although it was an improvement on what we saw before, they kept a few things different, obviously, right? They went up to the 144 hertz from the 120. That's an improvement last year, but they dropped the headphone jack. And at least the way we're seeing it now, not only did they bring the headphone jack, they brought a quad DAC with it. I feel like that the aero cooler that we get now on this is actually much, much better. The squeeze functionality is much easier to use. We have 4 buttons. They have the top, right, and left, and then now we have 2 extras with the air triggers that we get in here, which is very nice. Although the ROG Phone 5 does not include the air cooler, that's the Pro and the Ultimate. For the 5, you have to buy it as a separate accessory. So there's a little bit of, that's one thing I feel like is a little bit of a takeaway where, and I'll say this probably because you'll see it in the video once it comes out, a little bit of a teaser on that. Gaming on the ROG Phone 5 for an extended amount of time without the cooler can get pretty hot. I played about a 25, maybe 30-minute session within PUBG. I was playing just a regular match, just playing 4 players. And we ended up winning the game, which was really, really fun. But the temperatures were like 111, close to being 115 without the cooler on it. And that, obviously I was pushing it. I was using it at the highest setting on everything, but it really shouldn't be that way. I feel like the 888 as a processor, although can get a little bit warm, definitely needs some type of cooling, and gaming phones are what can do it well for gaming sessions, for an extended amount of gaming sessions. I think casual gaming should not be a big issue. I'm like, if I was just going to play one match on PUBG and walk away, would not have been an issue. I also feel like if I had a better case on it, it probably would not have been as much of an issue, because there's the other factor is when you're holding it without a case like this, without obviously the air cooler, you're more touching the actual device. So even though that definitely the design of the smartphone is made to withstand those temperatures for a certain amount of time, I feel like throttling at some point is going to be kicking in there. So that's something to keep in mind. Is the Exynos good for gaming? Yes, Naveed, there's no question that the Exynos can play games. It's better than what it was with the 990 on the 2100, but there's still some warming up concerns as well. So it seems like this year, as opposed to where we had the 865 a little bit more consistent, the 888 and the 2100 both have a little bit of temperatures, but I feel like the Exynos warms up faster than the 888. That's a better way to say it. It is a little bit warm. Yeah, no, and these are things that I'm not exactly very happy about, because the entry-level ROG Phone 5 doesn't have the additional sensors on the back, the touch sensors, because the Pro and the Ultimate have 2 extra touch-sensitive sections. So where, sorry, let's do it backwards here. So where we have 1, 2 here on this one, on the standard model, the Pro and the Ultimate have 2 sections here on the bottom right and the bottom left. So you have technically 2 and on the bottom. And then, of course, the air cooler adds 2 more. So in total, you should be, in theory, able to actually configure 6 buttons. Kind of like Quan said it on Thursday's show, it's essentially doing the reverse claw on the phone, where we normally used to do this on the smartphone when we play video games on the phone, and then now we're literally just moving it to the back. It's better for ergonomics. It's easier to work with. I like the triggers on the back with the ROG phone, especially in PUBG and Fortnite, because of the aim and shot, right? I don't have to actually kind of remember in there. So it's shifting it to the top, I can focus on basically pan and directional buttons with my thumbs, and of course my trigger and pull there. And then with the additional buttons, I imagine would be easier also to customize. Let's say, switching the actual rifle that you're using, or depending on what you're doing, you can also jump in and basically either duck and configure some of those there if you want to basically have just easier enjoyment of the game, so you get the full view of your display without having your fingers kind of cramping in style in there. Xperia does a great job with that because of the long form factor, but we'll definitely appreciate it there. Let me see here. Oh, yeah. So Jermaine saying, yeah, dropping the headphone jack was a big yikes in general, but even specifically for gaming phones. And I think what we mostly appreciate as gamers on a smartphone or even on a PC, it's lag. We don't, sorry, let me say that back. We appreciate low lag or no lag. That's literally the best thing. So response time is always a critical thing, especially in FPS games, because you're literally depending on your touch response, initiating the action, and then getting the hit or getting the goal or whatever you're trying to do. And for games, PC gamers always love that. Now, I do use wireless for my PC gaming, but those technologies have moved on much further than what we see with Bluetooth connectivity when it comes to audio, because they not only have proprietary dongles that you connect to the PC, and that runs the transmission much faster, but that's because it's been there for many years. Bluetooth inherently has a latency. It doesn't matter how fast they're able to get it, it still has a built-in latency that could potentially cause you to lose the game. Because if you don't hear somebody coming from behind you or coming around and you're using a wireless headphones, that could literally cost a match if you're trying to play a game against somebody else. So at the end of the day, losing the headphone jack for the ROG Phone 3 was for me a big difference. Now, again, keep in mind, you could still use USB-C headphones, but the headphone jack has always been a standard where people already had headphones based on headphone jack, like a 3.5 millimeter earpieces. So moving over to USB-C changes technology, having to buy another headset. There's a lot of different things going on. I think a lot of people still like using their wired headphones, and I can actually use my my 770s because of the high impedance support now on the ROG Phone 5. Like great pair of cans that you can actually listen to and enjoy. Let me see. I think I missed a few. Okay, here. DT saying, since Samsung's for some reason is coming, everyone Apple does. Do you? Let's see. Android fires major software. So I think DT is trying to ask essentially is it possible that since Samsung's trying to increase their support or their software support for some of their devices, is it possible that we'll probably get to a point where Android will provide us 5 years worth of support? So the reality is you have to kind of factor in what you're getting with the price, right? So the more expensive high-end phones, you're generally going to be having some baked-in pricing into supporting the device for that many years. The comment that I think you mentioned regarding Samsung's support, it's not going to be a blanket statement support on every single Samsung device that is released. You have to keep in mind mid-range and entry-level smartphones from Samsung will not receive that much. OnePlus already kind of does that with the Nord. The Nord is only promised one software update from the release that it came out with. So it was released with Android 10 last year, the Nord, the N10, and the N100, and they're probably only going to see Android 11 as an update. They're not going to see Android 12. So having that function is always good. The question would be is how long do you wait for it and how well is it optimized for your smartphone, or is it going to make things worse when you get the update? So those are things you always have to kind of keep in mind. 5 years as a realistic software support, I probably would say 5 years of security patch updates is a good way to do it. But the other thing that you also want to keep in mind is the Android support from Google on top, not necessarily just the manufacturers, because they're following what Google's providing from security patch updates. So once the device or an OS is no longer supported, those are going to be also kind of big factors in there. So 5 years is a little bit of a stretch. Is it possible? Yes, but I probably would imagine that it would be more on the higher end devices, but not necessarily like mid-range and entry level. Yes. So here, Spartus Tech Reviews is saying, from what I see, it isn't the quad DAC. So it isn't the quad DAC. It's a different DAC made by ESS. They've listed it as a quad DAC, but it also has a very high. It's listed as a quad DAC, and it is a different ESS. It is actually made exactly by ESS, but the quality of the audio on this definitely drives higher impedance headphones. It's improved over the one that we have on the ROG Phone 2. Let's just say this much. The last time they included a headphone jack was nothing like the one we see right now. It's the fact that they brought it back and they improved it over what we've seen in the past is the reason why everybody's excited. It's generally, again, most companies, when they take something away, they don't typically bring it back. Sony did it last year. I hope Sony, the Xperia 1 Mark III, carries it this year. But the fact that what we've seen here, we're seeing something that is a little bit better than what we've seen in the past, which is good. It's always good for us. Let me see here. I think Greg, yes. Aditya, thank you. TK, you've been killing it with the suite. The ROG Phone 5, the FX3 videos were good. Like them, matched in quality and depth coverage. Loved them. I appreciate it. And I made sure to put chapters this time. I always made sure to kind of do chapters as well, which I feel like will help people if they want to be able to skip through things. And I pinned the first comment, I think, on the videos to be those chapters so that you guys get a chance to, if you want to skip over to, let's say, the gaming section, the camera section, the video section, the audio section, you can literally jump back and forth to whatever you want. So I felt like a little bit easier because they tend to be a little bit longer, but it's seriously like if you're considering to make a purchase on the phone, like the ROG Phone 5 or even the Find X3 Pro, you'll have a good chance, you'll have a good understanding of what the device offers and if this is going to be the phone for you or not. I feel like there's a lot of devices or a lot of reviews we tend to see that focus mostly on the high points and not necessarily maybe showcase some of the other points that we see in there. Whoa, I think I'm really, really behind. Okay. Thank you, Muhammad. Okay, so here's another good one. So I feel like the Snapdragon 870 is going to be the SoC of the year due to the budget pricing. So yes, the Snapdragon. Thank you, by the way, Mohammed, for that question. The Snapdragon 870, if we obviously, you guys probably already know, is the Snapdragon 865 plus. So it's an overclocked version of last year's overclocked version of the one that came out at the beginning of the year. It is still based on the same architecture, which means the SoC, the processor, and the modem are not integrated. So there's no built-in 5G like we have it with the 888. I think the 865 is a super capable processor. The fact that we're seeing devices come out with it in 2021 is a great function. It's a little bit cheaper, as Muhammad just mentioned as well. And the fact that we're seeing more devices carry it could basically mean that this ends up being somewhat of a, because it's not really a mid-range processor. This is seriously it's a flagship processor. The 865 is 65 plus is literally maybe what, 5 months old, five maybe barely. So the 870 is really not taking it that much further. So if you're running something from late 2020, you're still perfectly fine. And the 870 in 2021, we're seeing more devices, like other versions of the Find X series, as well as smartphones coming out with it. I'm excited to see that. I haven't had any devices that carry the 870 yet. And I'm really intrigued to see how that how the improvements are from the 865 plus, because we have an 865 plus device here with the Note 20 Ultra in the house at least. Um, Greg's mentioning the warm temperatures on there. Yes, the temperatures on the 888. I mean, those are some of the things that Juan Carlos has been talking about when it comes down to gaming and extended gaming. For people that buy or want to play games on their devices, or let's say you want to do things that are heavy, drive the battery on the device and the performance. There's going to be some temperature, increases. Now, I'm not saying the whole phone is at that temperature. I want to be very clear. There are certain hotspots where the processor, and that's one of the reasons why you'll notice that the air cooler sits right in the center. There's even a small mat there that kind of is positioned ever so nicely straight on where the processor is sitting. And they also did a different thing here where they split the battery. The battery here, as opposed to what we've seen in the past, was a single 6,000 milliampere cell. It's actually two 3,000 milliampere batteries that are easily charged faster. That's one of the reasons why they did with the 65-watt charger in here. So keep that in mind. Let me see here. Majid's asking me which device or which device do I like the most. So far, I think in the beginning of this year, at this point, I'm leaning very heavily to the Find X3 Pro at this point. The Mi 11 is also very much a fun device. They're very good. They're very fast. The Xperia 1 Mark II definitely became renewed when we got Android 11 to it, so that also kind of works as a very nice upgrade. I do want to say though that the implementation of the display on the Xperia 1 Mark II is a little bit different than what we've seen with the Xperia Pro. It's obviously a function that you're able to use, but I feel like it's the process of using it on the Xperia Pro is definitely better baked into the system. With the Xperia 1 Mark II, you need a device that runs video over USB-C. And believe it or not, most like the adapters that you buy, the MHL adapters that we use don't work backwards. They're not intended to be HDMI into a smartphone, and it doesn't actually work. So you end up having to buy a capture card or an HDMI to USB adapter that are sold like on Amazon and different places. So it does need a little bit more, obviously, and the Pro does kind of justify itself the way it's set up. It's more streamlined again and better antenna management as opposed to the Xperia 5 Mark II, where we don't have 5G at all in the US. Yeah, no, sorry. Let me double check. Yeah, I think I'm way behind. So let's see here. Navid's in there as well. Why does Samsung not use Snapdragon instead of Exynos? I think the straight answer would probably be Exynos is in-house. It's their baby. Obviously, they're going to use it on their devices. There's only two markets, from what I understand, essentially, is the Korean market as well as US that uses Snapdragon. And at one point, it was due to band support a long time ago. Basically the Exynos wasn't supporting the same band frequencies or the band support for the US markets, and that's why US got Snapdragon. Now, for the longest time, that became part of what their selling point is in the US, so they stuck to it. They did release an Exynos. One version, I feel like, was the Note. One of the Notes was released that was an Exynos model, and they quickly went back. I feel like, why does it choose? I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I'm with you. Why don't you just stick to Snapdragon on everything? Why make two versions of it? But I'm sure Samsung at some point in their setup, or at least in their PR situation, they're keeping the consistency in the US because the consumers have gotten used to it. They don't want to bring in any of their concerns, any concerns that could potentially change people's perception of their device. Not to say that the Exynos is like that much worse. Performance prior to last year and this year, Exynos was actually pretty competitive, and I think Samsung is coming back. We see a lot of improvements with the 2100 over the 990, but it still hasn't kind of recouped to back where they were in the, I would say, the earlier days of performance comparison to the Snapdragon. On a daily, honestly though, I mean, unless we're looking true specific benchmark numbers, none of those things are going to really make a big difference in the way the applications are loading, the type of applications you're able to run. It's more so on the throughput when you're gaming, when you're taking a lot of pictures and videos, you're going to notice a little bit of a difference there. And at the end of the day, realistically, it's based on markets. And then the problem is obviously it's not like you can import a Qualcomm and expect it to perform the exact same way because of the band support. That's one thing we want to keep in mind. I swallow cum. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure there's a super chat or some kind of thing in where you are because it looks like you're on the YouTube side. But I appreciate that as well. Oh, Gary, yeah. So the Razer Phone 2 got an update. That's okay. Sorry, take that back. Security patch update, not Android 10. The Razer 2 gets pretty warm playing Fortnite. And yeah, a fan would be wait for it. Cool. I like Gary with the nice delivery right there. Gaming phones are known to be warm. There's not going to be a big thing. They're meant to run this way. I mean, seriously, they push the hardware, they push the configuration. And they make it so that it's easier for you to run the performance mode, the balance mode, or the battery mode. So you don't actually have to run it in performance. Keep in mind, I push it, or when I'm running the ROG Phone 5, I go to performance mode and I turn up everything. Touch response, touch latency, all of that good stuff in there. And that obviously will push the device. We're using it for what it's intended for, the horsepower. So you always want to keep that in mind. See here. Okay, so Icewell, I really appreciated the question, but please do not spam the chat. And if you guys don't mind, if you spam the chat, that it's gonna make it very uncomfortable for a lot of us, and it doesn't help us a lot. But I really appreciate you guys in there. So 64 megapixel Snapdragon 1 sensor. Pushkar, I'm not 100% sure if you're talking about just the sensor size. The sensor size isn't always the big story. So whenever we're looking at smartphones and we're looking at camera sizes, don't fall for the number of megapixels as a feature. 108 megapixel is not necessarily going to give you better pictures than a 64 megapixel camera or sensor. It all comes down to how the camera sensor is set up. If it's the way it's basically pixel binning, quad Bayer, or whatever situation that's going on there. And it also comes down to post processing and how the camera app actually processes these images. And so there's a big factor what you're getting here, and also how the camera is tuned. Is it really running the way it's supposed to, or is it held up by software? So keep that in mind. I wouldn't necessarily buy it. Try to see for examples if you're always concerned. Wait to see some other people's comments, some other content, videos, pictures of this device that were posted, and then you can make a better decision there to see how the camera performs. So always an improvement there. So I always love getting calls in the middle of my show, but I cannot pick up a call. You guys are important for me. Let me see here. Okay, I think I'm going to that. Yes, Matt Tyler's in the chat, dude. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Matt Tyler. Keep the hammer swinging. Oh, Mohammed. Okay, see. It's actually a really good question. So Mohammed's asking a really nice question here. Since the Snapdragon 870 or the 888, as far as I know, the 888 was on the Mi 11s, and Mi 11's Achilles heel as it overheats a lot during gaming. Hope the 870 is going to be more of a stable SoC. It's absolutely. All I can say is this: the 870 is an 865 with it's a rebranded 865. There's no question the thermals are going to be much better than what we get with the 888. The key thing with the 888, as you said it in your question, is it's going to be cooling. It's going to be accessories like these. For an extended gaming session, I feel like it's going to need to be something that we're going to need to actually keep an eye out and, of course, pay attention to. So was it an issue for me to play it for 25 minutes? If I was just going to play one match and walk away, I don't think it was going to be a big issue for me. At the end of the day, it was more about when I was shooting the videos for like the 2 videos that we did today, this week, the 5 videos. The gaming session roughly goes about 2 hours or so. So I'm consistently jumping from one game to the other and playing long matches. So I'm trying to continue the whole thing to get the video, the B-roll, or the gaming, that 2 minutes or so video that you guys get to see. Literally takes me hours to produce because I actually have to play the whole games. It's not like I can just like, you know what I mean? I can't just copy it from somebody. No, I have to produce the content. So those typically generate some temperatures, and it didn't really go that much higher than 100 and like I think it was like a 111. The most I was able to get it was like close to 120, but I feel like there was some kind of configuration. I'm not sure what it was about that game that did it because other games didn't get it that high. Um, but I would say look forward to the video again. At the time, my air cooler, as you guys may have heard on Thursday's show with Juan Carlos and Isa, I have a problem with my air cooler. I actually kind of damaged it inadvertently. I don't know why or how, but apparently I broke one of the pins on it. There's a series of pins on the air cooler. And by damaging that one pin, obviously the phone wasn't recognizing it. So by the time I produced my content, I did not have a good amount of time to play with the air cooler. So I've since jerry rigged it to kind of get it to work now. It does work, and that's why it sits on the phone and I don't take it off. So I've been using it with the air cooler the whole time, kind of like a interesting design. But let's go ahead and take a quick drink. So Aditya, for sure. Actually, Aditya, do me a favor when you get a chance. Hit me up on on Twitter or Instagram, and hit me up with your information. I would definitely. I'll add you into the list. I know I mentioned it last time, but as you guys know, things kind of go hectic, and I forgot to kind of follow through with it. So yeah, the concept creators are saying, yeah, the Mark III will have a headphone jack, which is a big factor. Sony continuing this, other carriers starting to bring it back, ROG bringing it back with Asus. That tells you basically they're seeing the benefit of having this type of technology. Now, Sony obviously doesn't bring it back just for to be able to use it for gaming. Sony uses it as an external audio source input so that you don't have to use your USB. If you're using your Xperia 1 Mark II, you can charge the phone at the same time as use an external mic connected to the cameras on the back when you're using the Cinema Pro app. Very nice and super functional. Like Sony's purpose of doing things on their smartphones are intentional. So those things are very nice. And the fact that the Mark III is going to continue with that, it's going to be great. I can't wait to see what they do with the cameras and what are the new features they're going to bring in. We haven't heard anything about it, right? We're in March. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, I think was it roughly around April, like April, May, when we started to maybe see some actual main really like line of when it's going to come out. So I'm hoping to see more information about it. I had a really nice time with Sony a couple of weeks ago or so. At the end of February, actually, it was on the 28th, where we were on the B Alpha show, and I was able to talk about the Xperia Pro, which was really, really cool. Unfortunately, you don't have the Xperia Pro anymore. That device had to go back. So yeah, no. Here. So IBB 2009 says, what do you think of the LG V60 and then possibly getting a successor to? Oh, hold on. Okay, let me read it on this side because it looks okay. What do you think of the LG V60 and then possibly not getting a successor to think that will be basically a downfall of the V60? So if we have to look at the V60 in 2021, just from the standpoint of what it offers, right? It's an 860 processor, 865, 5G support, 5,000 milliampere battery, a large front-facing 1080p panel running at 60 hertz, a headphone jack, 4K 60 across the camera systems that you get in there, great audio recording on it. I think it's still a very good contender in 2021. The concerns that we're seeing right now is that we are in March. We are in mid-March roughly, and we still haven't heard anything about a potential successor. Beginning of the year, we saw them tease the LG Roll or the LG rollable phone at CES. That brought up some excitement. A lot of us were very excited about that. And then there were some rumors and things, and we saw some internal memos and so on. Things are kind of going on, but we haven't heard much. So my hope is that what's going on right now is that LG's working out their mobile game. I don't think they're going out of it. I don't think it's being dropped. I think it's literally maybe going through some reorganization, and we're definitely going to be able to see what they bring us. The V60 needs to have a successor because I feel like the V60 it was such a strong return to the core of what people wanted out of this LG devices. The headphone jack has always been there, but it's been basically getting better and better and better. They wanted a large front-facing display, stereo speakers, true stereo speakers, not the boom sound as much. And I think they got all of those. And I feel like the V60 today still makes perfect sense. If you want to pick up a V60 in 2021, you're not going to be disappointed. Android 11 was just pushed out of it as well within the last couple of weeks. And with the only exception I would probably say is just do a full reset when you get that. It seems like it was a good, definitely update to get it into more modern experiences right now. But the question would be: is it going to be a downfall? It's going to be a little bit hard, and it's going to be a little bit hard depending on what they decide to do. Majid is leaving us as well. Have a good evening, Majid. I hope you're doing well. And let me see here. Concept career. The Find X looks so good. David Burns in the chat, dude. Haven't seen you for some time, David. Hope you're doing well. Yes, the Find X3 Pro, or the series, just the original even Find X, it was just a massive shift from their original Find X series. So if you guys obviously know, Oppo has been making smartphones for a long time, and the design changes every year has made it into, because you think of it this way, like people will say they're not consistent, they're not following their own path. Well, maybe that's their consistency. We talked about that on Thursday. This could be their thing. Their thing is to present something new every time. LG did it for many, many years, and we always kind of looked at it as experiments and experiments, but Oppo brings in good experiments. The Find X3, the Find X2 from last year with the vegan leather initially was a different look than the first one, but lo and behold, it is a fast smartphone, large battery, super fast charging. Again, 65-watt charging on a smartphone is crazy these days. What we see with, here, even the ROG Phone 2 jumped to the 65 bandwagon, and they're using the same technical approach to it that we see with the Find X series, as well as what we saw, with other smartphones that use fast chargers. And that's the ability of splitting the battery, right? 3,000 milliampere battery, giving us that massive charge. And that's what makes the smartphone so unique. Massive 6,000 milliampere battery with the 65-watt charger. We do get the headphone jack that is really nice, and you get the cooling mechanism, the air triggers, the customized UI elements, all of the cool things, and even the unboxing experience. If you guys are going to get a chance to check the video, there's even some AR experiences with the unboxing where you're able to use the camera from the smartphone to get nice, different, unique things. I think the last time I saw that was when OnePlus did it with, I almost want to say the OnePlus 8. But it could be OnePlus 7 or maybe OnePlus 7T. I don't want to be held for that, but yeah, definitely really, really nice. Hey, Joe Hickey's in there as well. Welcome back, Joe Hickey, and congratulations, Joe, for joining the design team over at the Across the Podcast. I saw the tweet this morning from that. Congratulations. Joe does some really nice, very, very nice graphic stuff work, and of course great images. Please make sure to check him out over on Instagram. Runs a couple of channels of really nice photography, but yeah, no, oh man, it's really cool. Let me see here. Hey Joe, Dave Burns. IBB's asking, is the Mi 11, can you find it on T-Mobile? Okay, so the question is, the Mi 11 will work on T-Mobile. It will not support 5G. The Xiaomi's phones are not intended, or are generally not built with US bands in mind. So the band support for the Mi 11 that I have are mainly used for Europe. So I have a European model. Most devices that are not released in the US that I get, like typically Xiaomi or even Oppo, these are European models. So consider to be more of the international units, because those are the ones that will work across the world. Now, does it work in the US? Absolutely. Can I get 4G LTE on here in the US? Absolutely. So there's no question it will work. It won't give you what I would probably say is maybe support for 5G, the sub-6 5G that T-Mobile's releasing right now, or even the new bands that they are able to turn on with the Sprint merger. So those things are not going to work because it just wasn't meant for that. That's the main thing you want to keep in mind. It doesn't mean that it won't work great. It will. Phone calls, gaming, all of that stuff will work great. You may get a better battery life because it's not on 5G all the time, but again, for what you're getting, it's going to give you a good experience. So hopefully that answers there as well. And let me see here. Oh, Oliver in there here. Good evening in Sweden, in Swedish. Oh, good. Okay, now I'm gonna have to try to say it here. God Goktuvail? Goktuvail? Okay. I'm butchering it. I'm not even going to try. um, how are you enjoying the micro lens on the Find X3? I do apologize, Oliver. I'm not trying to butcher the word. I am trying to read it. The only way to read it is basically God, because of the way the English word says. So God, K, Val, because of the A with the sign also, Gatkeval. That's the only way I would probably, Gatkeval. So Gatkeval. Hopefully that sounds right. And if it is, please let me know. If it's not, maybe don't mention it. Yeah. Or not, still let me know. For sure. Team Pixel, Joe, always Team Pixel, man. This guy is rocking his Pixel 5. And of course, Tariq. Okay, so Tariq's in there. Tariq, TK, do you have any news from the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus Watch? So I'll say this. The OnePlus 9, we've seen many leaks. Obviously, the Hasselblad collaboration. If there's anything that I can learn from the Find X3 Pro is that the display, if it follows what it did last year, we're going to get really good when it comes down to basically the front-facing display. We already had the 120 hertz, we already had the QHD, so they can only improve it even more. So that's going to be really nice. I saw some, I think was it this morning somewhere on the news that there was OnePlus Watch got certified through one of the Asian certification systems somewhere. So it looks like it's coming out in the Asian community. I'm interested to see what OnePlus decides to go with when it comes down to a watch, right? Oppo's watch, the, hold on a second. So this guy. Let me see. Make sure here. So yeah, the Oppo watch that we get here. This one has the 3100 series. I don't think this is running the 4100, not the latest one. But Oppo released one last year. There was two models, right? There was the Chinese model that ran a proprietary OS, and then there was the international model that ran Wear OS. I think they're poised to actually have something very nice. From the leak that I saw, it didn't look like it was going to look like the one I saw, at least that got certified, and I can try to find the article for that. Seemed like it was going to be more of a rounded watch, more closer to what the TicWatch runs. And that's going to be more the approach that I feel like OnePlus is going. So at least that's some of the leaks that we know that are coming out. As far as the OnePlus 9 Pro or the OnePlus 9, and then, the devices are going to be supporting Hasselblad. So that's going to be a big factor there. My hope is that they continue what they did with the OnePlus 8 Pro from last year with the cameras, because we got some really good camera experiences on the 8 Pro, and we'll want to see basically what they do with the 8, with the 9 and the 9 Pro. Now, we had the wireless charging last year, so there's obviously a good insinuation to say that the wireless charging is going to stay. Coincidentally, I don't know if anybody caught, Oppo this year took some of those, I would say, inspirations from OnePlus from last year, because the 30-watt charging that we had last year is what we have on the Oppo device this year. So we're calling it AirVook, but for the most part, it's literally the wireless charging that we get. It's a proprietary, the best way I can describe it is I think it uses a proprietary charger. It still supports, what is it called? Standard Qi chargers, but to get that 30-watt charging, it needs to use that charger, and it works, and it seems like it provides the same experience. So that's always nice and really nice to see. My hope also is that we see the 65-watt charging that we saw on the 8T at the end of the year come over to the OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro. So those are going to be some things that we always appreciate. Having faster charging on top of having wireless, I feel like is like literally a trump card. So the thing that made me appreciate the Find X2 Pro last year the most, and I swear to God, is the fact that I would run the device down to about 10% and put it on for about 30 minutes, and I'm literally almost at 100%. That's how good. And I don't have to keep it on the charger all day. I can use it. The battery lasts for a long time. The Find X2 really made me appreciate all of the optimizations that ColorOS have done here and what Oppo has to bring. And again, why I really like the Find X3 Pro. The micro lens is very nice, and it's a very unique experience there. So David's saying Qualcomm really only had the leg up in the GPU and the ISP. Yes, and obviously the triple ISP and of course the GPU with the Adreno 660 improvements that we saw this year is that's generally where people start noticing the difference. It's like I said, general usage for the Exynos and the Qualcomm are very much comparable. Because at the end of the day, we're seriously talking about cars that are fast, right? We're not talking about slow cars. We're not talking about cars from 20 years ago. We're already talking about two fast cars. And the reality is what we're getting at the end is we're nitpicking some of the performances at the higher end when we're pushing them, not necessarily when we're running them normally. If you're just running errands with it, you're doing normal things, opening, closing app, responding to emails, minor edits, posting social media, all of the general things that we do that are not necessarily driving the horsepower. Those are the things that kind of go there. It's when you go for an extended session of video, taking a lot of videos, a lot of pictures, same thing, producing, editing. Those are when you start noticing the differences when it comes down to the performance there. But at the end of the day, my hope is that in the next generation, the later year this year, maybe Samsung can start working on a updated or maybe like a plus version of the Exynos where it addresses some of those concerns. Sorry, see here. Joe, the new member of Across the Pondcast. So that does that technically mean that there's now 2 on the UK side and 1 on the US side? That means you guys are going to be looking for another person for the US side, Matt. Hope you're doing well, Matt. Again, Gary, you flat. Oh man, you guys are crazy. Minati. No, I don't know who Gary Minati is. Carrie, sorry, said the wrong name there. Let me see here. Let me see here. Oh, Donald. Donald Dazina is asking, so between all of the positive YouTube videos and your chat community, it's hard to understand. A lot of people seem to like LG. There must be more to this story. LG is as a company, when it comes down to their smartphone business, they're not known necessarily for their higher end models across the world. They're more known for their budget line, the K series. Those typically you go pick them up from a company, let's say Sprint, not Sprint, but like Mint Mobile or something like that. They're generally a budget smartphone. The approach to what you get LG is this. As a company, LG tries to provide great hardware. There's never a question that the hardware that we get from the V series, the Velvet, the G series, back when we had the G series, we always got great hardware. They experimented a little bit. What you see generally on a lot of companies or a lot of tech reviewers when they're approaching this is they look at it as a comparison to specifically another device. Are you going to basically get the exact same experience? Are we getting one vanilla flavor of across multiple devices? And at the end of the day, we have to understand that no two companies are going to give you the same experience, because then there's no point, right? If all cars gave you the exact same fastest speed limit and all give you all the same standard model, standard features on the car, you wouldn't have a choice to say, well, I want to get this car over this. It ends up becoming more of a look, right? So in that sense, when we look at it from what LG has to offer, they're not perfect. They have their challenges. They definitely have their challenges. The software game with LG is definitely one of their weaker points if we have to kind of put out like a look into it. So what I look at it in the sense of what does LG do? LG provides us great hardware. The V60 is absolutely a great example there. The V60 actually is a massive example in the right direction. Software did take them a little bit, but they did release Android 11. That was a big move on all 3 carriers here in the US. So the AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon variant received it. But what you really want to appreciate and what you see here is that because the people in the chat and the people in the community that we have here, they're very much big supporters of LG because of what LG offers. When you listen to music on an LG device with the quad DAC that you have built in there, you appreciate the quality of the work that they put in there. When you're using their cameras and you get 4K 60 frames per second on all of the cameras, even the front-facing camera, that's something you have to appreciate. The speakers on there, the battery, and all of those are the things that we appreciate. And at the end of the day, they still had a headphone jack on the V60, which most companies took out. So that's a big factor. So people that appreciate those little features tend to gravitate to the carriers or the OEMs that make them. And LG and Sony still are carrying that torch. That's one of the reasons why. Sorry, kind of the longer version of what I meant to say. Okay, let me see. Let me hear. Sorry. I'll put that one here. And one more there. Yes. I'm not sure what's going on, and I think Matt took a break, so we'll have to start kind of chatting. Okay, Greg. Yeah, no, Greg, and then there, TK. Oh, here, Chemi's talking about the piece. So, PKB talking about sensor size. The P50 leaks shows a huge camera sensor. Have you seen any of that? So, I've seen some of the leaks. I didn't get a chance to dig too much into them with the P50s. My head's been a little bit going in. I've been wrapped around the axle a little bit with when it came down to the videos I've done this week. P series is known for photography. There's no question that this is where Huawei will be pushing the limits of the cameras when it comes to this. So the question is obviously is it going to be good? 9 times out of 10 with the way Huawei's been doing for the last few years, I think yes, absolutely. I mean, if the P40 the P40 did amazingly well, and of course, this is something that you always anticipated. So, camera sensors, experimentations, Huawei, it's a shoe-in. There's no question that it's going to be great. My question would still always end up being essentially is, have they done a little bit more on the front-facing experience, maybe a little bit better for the front-facing exposures and videos on it? And I'm hoping that we're starting to see more 4K 60 across, get everything to run at 4K 60 and not treating the front-facing camera as a more of a lower 1080p, more resolution experience. Because even with the Find X3 Pro or even with the ROG Phone, 1080p is the most carriers or most OEMs like to keep it at, which I like it. But then why are we boosting the feature saying that that we have a 20 or 30 megapixel camera when we're only capping it? Give us the full power, or maybe give us the ability of using those sensors for sure. Let me see. I think I'm really, really behind, and I need to kind of start looking into it. So the yes, the 865 with smaller clock on a smaller processor. I think you're probably answering somebody else, but the 865 does. I mean, the overclocks, I think for the most part are like between 2.7 to 2.8 gigahertz on the multi-core options that they have in there on their fastest core, not on all of the cores. Keep in mind they have the one fast core, two, if I'm not mistaken, three mid cores and four small cores. The setup architecture within the 865 and the 888 are based on that, and the fastest was where you got a little bit faster processors there. Let me see here. Devin, okay, yeah. So the Find X2 Pro, OnePlus 8 Pro, except the pixels look great. Yes, I think so. DTS, yeah, sensor size, using that sensor for software. The other ones is the internal hardware as well, allowing the maximum utilization of the sensor is another thing that's also a big thing. No one factor can be used to determine the camera quality. Absolutely. But what you tend to see a lot of camera companies do is you'll probably end up saying basically, we have 108 or we have 99 or whatever. At the end of the day, yes. Is it a flashy number? Absolutely. A lot of companies now have done enough work where most cameras can produce decent pictures, good pictures that you're comfortable sharing with your friends and family. So it's not at the end of the day that we're saying that the 108 is going to be a bad sensor, but it is literally a combination of many different parts of what they're using, down to the processor they're using, and down to the post-processing software setup that they have in there as well, to how do these images show up. So keep that in mind when you're looking at a smartphone. And the 108 megapixel sensor on the Mi 11 was definitely a very good implementation over what we saw last year. And of course, I feel like from the sense of the camera options that you have within the camera app, depending on the market that you're in, your choice and your preference is going to be a little bit different. If there's one thing I learned from the last 2 episodes that Juan Carlos and I did on the best of our week is, depending on the user, the functions in the camera are going to be very different. Trisha Herberger, that was on a couple of weeks ago, not a couple of weeks ago, last week, her approach to why she likes to use the Note 20, the Note 20 Ultra and a Pixel at the same time is because that she likes the way the pictures come out of the Note. That's a personal preference. That doesn't mean the cameras are bad. Isa's approach to looking at cameras when smartphones is very much into the functionalities of the extra features that they include. Why she likes MIUI cameras over, let's say, other cameras from other manufacturers. So those are the things we always have to understand, that while we, as in a good senses here in the group, love certain aspects of how the LG and Sony and of course other companies' performances when it comes to cameras, there are obviously big markets for people that buy them. But the question is, do you at some point become so invested into one ecosystem that you no longer give a chance to everybody else? And I don't want to ever fall into that situation. That's why I always, even though I am a big fan of LG and Sony, I still check out everybody else. As I mentioned to you guys, the X3 Pro has not disappointed. It definitely is an upgrade to what we had last year. We lost the periscope. That's a different thing. We got a telescope. Um, and I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. It doesn't really change that much of an experience. I was never very much into distant photography. I was very much into wide angle, standard wide, ultra wide, and of course a little bit of cropping when I want to be able to get a little bit closer to the subject. So, short answer: there's a lot of things to be said when it comes down to performance on cameras. You have to kind of pick the ones that work for you. So hopefully that works great. Let me see here. Oops. Oh, Majid, still, hey man, welcome back. NIF 2005, hey man, welcome, man. So here's an interesting question: is 16 gigs or 18 gigs required for a smartphone? No. The reality is, at the end of the day, no one program will actually run and use that much RAM. Android as an operating system, what I would probably say is this. We've seen this trend of increasing RAM support. I think if Google can produce a smartphone that runs smooth and perfectly fine with 6 gigs of RAM, and they're capable of providing us one of the best experiences on a 7 series processor, that tells you something of what happens in the background. A lot of times what you're getting, the devices that require more RAM in the background, are because they're running more processes in the background that eats up a lot of that RAM. It's like opening up Chrome on your PC. You suddenly notice how much RAM kind of wraps up because of the way Chrome is intended to basically run. And especially if you're running multiple tabs of Chrome, your RAM usage just basically goes all the way, basically starts eating up RAM. I would probably say is 16 and 18 gigs are overkill. I don't think there's going to be a much difference between the two. The type of RAM on the ROG Phone 5 on both the 16 and the 18 are both the same LPDDR5. So they're not getting that much faster RAM as opposed to getting basically, if you're not getting 2 extra gigs of RAM with faster clock speed, you're getting the same one. UFS 3.1 on the internal storage, which again is the same. You do get more with the Pro and the Ultimate. With the, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's running 512 on them as opposed to the 256. But I don't think 16 and 18, we're not at that point. Let's just say this much. Samsung does it a little bit different with their devices, and I'll say it because they typically have so much more processes running in the background. On top of the fact that if you want to run DeX, that's where you start noticing some of those things where you need the extra, I would say, headroom. So if you've ever have to, like, kind of like if you treat it like a cup, right? Let's say this is 10 gigs of RAM. You want to have at least 2 to 3 gigs open at the top so that you run those extra processes whenever you're opening them up. And then of course, when you get to the point where you're getting closer to it, you don't want to hit that limit. Samsung for the longest time kind of used to have that problem with TouchWiz back when the UI used to be referred to as that. They used to use up everything. Like they gave you more RAM, but they kept including more things in the background. One UI has tapered things a little bit down. I think 12 is a little bit up there. 8 to 12, I think is still reasonable. 16 is just way over. And I feel like it's more of, it's just, like I said, very specific cases that could even potentially come close, but having more open headroom above for available RAM helps you allow the system run faster. 16 gigs doesn't really make a difference, and 18 is not going to make a difference over 12. I think 8 is still very reasonable for most smartphones, and I think 12 is, again, consider that to be like the pristine, the really nice sweet spot for a smartphone. NIF 2005. Oh, good evening, man. Joe, in terms of gaming on the ROG Phone 5, it was miles ahead than Find X3 Pro. So I'll say this. When it comes to gaming on both phones, if I had to pick between the two, I probably will levitate closer to the ROG Phone 5. Purely from the customization function, the ability of having the triggers. Those triggers actually become a very big part of your gaming experience once you have them, right? Like I've played with the Black Shark before. The Black Shark 3, I think the Black Shark 3 Pro had pop-up buttons. And when you're getting these type of functions and you get used to them, playing PUBG without it becomes a little bit weird. Like when I was playing it on the ROG Phone, I was literally more like, it's just 2 thumbs in the front for directional. On the FX3, I have to actually kind of bring in everything because you have to claw back. So it changes the mechanics of how you play games. And I feel like for an extended amount of time, for like duration, like an hour or so, I feel like the ROG Phone 3 would be more of the phone I sit with to play games. I think that's why I gravitate toward gaming phones. Um, RGB is a big, nice factor also on the back when you're thinking about gaming. Obviously, it's on the back of the phone, doesn't really impact you. But the fact that they also have the internal or the customization setup here, that we have a USB-C and a headphone jack facing downwards. So an example would be on top, obviously, the headphone jack. When you're playing games and your hands are typically cradling your phone on both sides, right? So there's no space for the headphone jack to come out this way without interrupting my hand. And if I'm using a USB-C to charge it or even play with an external display, this becomes a big factor. Having them both sit at the bottom is a big it's a big, really big win for me when it comes down to functional things on a smartphone. Again, for gaming, ROG makes perfect sense. Asus has been doing it and been doing it right for a long time. I would have loved to see, obviously the Razer phones keep it up and work and do that all of the work there. But those are things that we have to understand that Razer is no longer there. ROG is still making the best experience, I feel like, when it comes down to gaming, and other manufacturers are still trying to catch up to that or provide us somewhat of an experience there. Black Shark's definitely a very strong contender. Obviously, a Xiaomi subsidiary, and I'm hoping that this year Black Shark doesn't disappoint and delivers back on that, and we see the improvements that they're able to bring in. Red Magic is also a big contender in here, but I feel like Red Magic's approach is a little bit different. They did the internal fan setup that we've seen for many years now, which I feel like that's the right way of doing it. But I feel like still, like, for some reason, ROG kind of just ever so nicely gives that nice, really, like the gaming phone, the way I would think like the best gaming phone comes out, ROG still does it. The ROG Phone 2, consistent for the last 2 years, again, without the problem on the display, there would be not even an issue with it. Still runs and does a very nice job. Hopefully that makes sense there. Oh, boom. Okay, I jumped. Let me see here. Let me see if I can catch it. Oh, Gary, Jason's in there. Hey, Jason, welcome back, man. Welcome back. Hey, TK, I hope you're having a great Saturday. Honestly, dude, we're having a great Saturday. The chat is very nice, very active this morning. I'm very happy. And I am, as usual, running behind when it comes down to the comments, as usual. Oh yes, no. So Davin's talking about he loves his V35 and the V50. I never got a chance to play with the V35 on AT&T here. It was a modded, not a modded. It was a special edition that was released only on AT&T. V30 was released on T-Mobile, I think, and on other carriers, but the V35 was later released on AT&T. Okay. It says, are the rumors on of the rumors of scarce inventory on the global market is true for the P50? It's a different thing. So obviously rumors are one thing. Access to hardware is going to be, if they're able to produce the content or to produce the device, it's going to be, how do I explain this correctly? I don't know if it is, if it isn't. So I'll state that right at the beginning. But if there has been one thing that we have learned in many years of smartphone releases and announcements, the scarcity of a certain item increases the demand for it and increases the anticipation for it. And what I mean by this is, if you've tried to find a PlayStation 5, an Xbox One X, Xbox X, or even try to find, like, even at the time when the Switch first came out, scarcity and numbers always increase demand because you don't have as much. So the scarcity of something like this could help the popularity of the P50. I'm not sure if that's going to be 100%. The question would be is the likeliness of how many markets it goes into. Obviously, it's going to release first into the Chinese market. That's typically how Huawei performs. And then after that, there'll be a global launch for a global edition of that phone. It's kind of the same thing with their new foldable, right? That generally goes to a specific market. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that actually becomes a true scenario or not. Personally, I think it can only help if there is any little bit of a scarcity, because that, again, as I said, the less things of something that are available for us to buy typically increases or entices people to consider picking it up. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. Yeah, no, definitely. Let me see here. Okay. Okay. more RAM support, more RAM makes sense for better desktop modes. So yeah, with David Burns, I feel like that's roughly about one of the few reasons that I feel like will help us as we come closer to the point. Well, as we are at a point where smartphones processing is very much ahead of what we are needing, just for the general usage that that I feel like most general tasks need. I think yes, we're way above what it needs. I think moving into mobile computing, getting those functions like using your smartphone, like your here. Um, the S21 Ultra or any of the like LG devices and so on, and plugging it into a neck stock and running it like a laptop. That is the reason why you would want to get a flagship. You want to be able to do more than just necessarily getting it and doing the typical things that you can perfectly do very well on a mid-range, right? You want to be able to get those extra benefits, those power, the processing, all of those things. Now, the additional RAM will be very functional there because you do need, obviously, you're running the entire main UI, the main system on the phone, and then running a separate UI separately on a separate experience using the output HDMI. So you have to understand that your phone doesn't stop working. Samsung does a very nice job with DeX. And I think Huawei does even a good job with EMUI desktop on their smartphones. So you're getting a really good experience, and you do need those faster processors and more RAM to make the experience smooth. So you don't see any stuttering, so issues of loading. The system can handle having that many processes running in the background. So definitely with you there. Uh, Jason's saying it seems like a rat race with somebody at it. I think we may be getting to a point where the RAM conversation kind of mimics the number of megapixels on the camera sensor. We, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll be first to admit I have 64 gigs of RAM on my desktop PC on my in there, and I barely ever, if I've ever crossed 31, is only because I'm running Premiere, Photoshop, and Elements at the same time, and I'm trying to run Chrome with obviously all their management in there. That's the only time I've ever had where I've actually reached that much RAM usage on my PC. And the reality of the matter is, yes, it could be a number at some point. As long as they're using great or good quality RAM, they're running on the faster RAM, there's no reason for us to need 20 or 32. The reality is at some point we may reach it. Obviously, it's inevitable as we keep going further in time. But the question would be realistically, how much do you need it when you're not using it to more things like, desktop experience, rendering, editing, all of those things? For sure. Davin, okay, ergonomics 101. Prices go up, so supply demand. So yeah, so Gary the fisherman, I love it. Economics 101. Prices go up as supply decline in the absence of a one-on-one alternative. So always supply and demand. It's part of how life is. So like I said, if the rumors are true, it could only be helping Huawei's conversation. I do not see this as a problem. Obviously, from a consumer end, it makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But I think, like I said, I don't really know if the rumors are true, or again, if it's just again something going on currently in maybe a promotional or something like that. Let me. Oh, this one is a good one. Sahi is asking is so OIS or versus gimbal camera or sensor shift. What do you think? What are your views on those? Okay. It depends on how you're using your phone. I'll say this: the gimbal mode on the V60, not the V60, on the LG Wing, is definitely very much a gimbal experience. This is literally a gimbal setup installed on a smartphone. Your best experience on your phone is going to be what you have in your pocket and what you're able to use whenever you need to use it. If you travel around with a gimbal and that's how your lifestyle is, then that's obviously going to be your best solution. There's no question. You already have the best experience because the gimbal definitely takes out the whole processor, not the processor, the need for an OIS or even good OIS on a smartphone. But if you don't, which is what most people end up walking, they're walking around with a smartphone, that's what's inside. So I would probably say the best situation is OIS with EIS installation on a smartphone for that combo. So compensate with the camera sensor, so the camera sensor moves, as well as the fact that you have software to also help you with the correction. That gives you the best experience of all worlds. So at the end of the day, that's how most, I feel like, will be the best solution. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't think there's anything wrong with gimbals. It just that's such a big accessory to carry. I don't think you're always going to remember to take it with you. And that one time where you do want to get that really nice, buttery smooth video, you're not going to have the accessory with you. So you might as well have, I would say, bet on the phone more than you would bet on an external accessory. That's always going to be my conversation. or at least the way I look at it, the best way to look at it there. It's a shame that you can't lock apps in that massive RAM on the ROG Phone 5. I think I want to say that you can, but it's they also have an app restart mechanism that helps us as well. So let me go and do here. Go back. Yes, so you do have what's it called, app locking in there to be able to use some of them. But there's a certain, that's another thing that I also need to test out, because I think we've seen app locking from before, the ability of leaving applications running in RAM. So when you have a lot of that RAM, you get that little bit of legroom there. So that hopefully that answers your question, Joe, right there. Let me see. With 2 docks. Okay, so Leo's asking a question regarding having more RAM. Those are things that would definitely be more functional. Having more RAM to support a dual dock or dual functionality, meaning running the same standard OS and then running. It's getting more notifications, and then of course getting updates on using it as a desktop experience. And I should have shut off the sound. Sorry, guys. I didn't realize no, actually it isn't. Oh, here it is. Notifications were on. But yeah, no, those are going to always be beneficial. That's when more RAM happens, is needed. But I think 16 and 18 are so much above what we normally use. I feel like 12 is more than like I said, I feel like 12 is the high end at what we need right now. 16 and 18, if anything, could be future proofing, but at least that's what you were getting the best situation. The entry level gets 16 gigs. That's crazy, right? The ROG Phone 5 gets 16, and the Pro and the Ultimate get 18. So way more. I haven't had a situation where I've actually ran out of RAM in any of the cases that I've done. But you can't play 2 games at the same time, so you can't really get that multitasking experience. And I'm not talking about functionally. I'm talking about the fact that physically paying attention to running 2 things with this. Where it becomes very nice, though, if you use the dock, the one that Asus makes for their TVs, and you're running it like a gaming system. So there's this gaming control that they I think it's Caillou. I could be wrong with the name. The Kaiju, sorry. And that controller allows you to play with the smartphone, and you can dock it and use it on the TV. Those are functions that I feel like RAM would be more functional there, to have those additional options to get it to run smoothly, because then you're trying to mimic more of a basically like a Nintendo Switch type of experience. You want more to help you compensate for what you're trying to do. So hopefully that helps there. Let me see here. Gary, no, so Jason's question here is: does ROG use a very heavy skin for on top of Android? I would probably say not as heavy as some. It's not as heavy as the One UI. Let's just say that much. If you've used a Samsung device and you're trying to compare it, this is definitely a little bit lighter, and it works much nicer in the sense of how fast it is to operate and load things. The RAM, again, over 12, already way more than you need. And of course, with the 888, you're getting the latest LPDDR5, UFS 3.1. All of the things in the ROG Phone 5 scream speed, for sure. Let me see here. I think. Yes, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Okay, so Leonardo da Vinci is asking, thank you first and foremost, obviously, for the super chat. Thank you very, very much. I'm thinking of getting the LG V60 for recording videos for YouTube. And then does Gcam work on it? So yes, Gcam does work, but you don't really need it. That's the other thing that I would probably say. It's based on the 865, and there's many versions and updated versions of the Gcam app. Video creation on the V60 is next level, even to this day. When it comes to recording video using this device, I recommend you using the Pro camera and in there, and using the camera sensors on the back, and then get yourself a good microphone and run audio to it. It's like a wired microphone even, and you're going to get some of the best experiences in there. So you can get personal audio on it. You'll get a great experience on the back with the 4K 60. And then even if you don't produce 4K, record in 4K. And I say that because when you downscale images or from videos, like let's say you take a frame like this, and when you're shooting the video and you're done, and then let's say in the middle of it, when you're editing it, you realize like, oh, I want to punch in a little bit. I want to crop a little bit. That's where the 4K comes in, and it helps you, because then when you're producing it at 1080, you're able to crop in and get a 1080 frame out of a 4K frame. So those are going to be really nice things. And then of course the audio recording, even if you don't use the external mic, the built-in mics on the V60 are very good. So even the audio recognition is there. I probably wouldn't use as much on the voice bokeh though, because that tends to warp a little bit the sound quality. I would go with straight recording and maybe do a little bit of cleanup on there with Audacity. It's a free software that's available to download for your PC. Hopefully that helped. But thank you again. Gary's in there. So I'll be shocked if Apple didn't pass along the cost of higher components, but they're saving money on chargers and packaging, and maybe they have the widget in the wiggle room. So the question would be is, yes, they are not only saving money in the charger component because they're charging you for it, so there's more income coming in. They're able to ship more smartphones in their containers when they're shipping them from manufacturing over to the US or to their market. So there's definitely an increase in profits. I was going to say cost, profit. So it depends on what they're trying to do, realistically. Oh, dude, appreciate it, Donald. Thank you very much for stopping by. Take care, man, and hopefully you have a good rest of the weekend, of course. Yes, Aditya. Oh my God, Aditya, right on point, right there. Recommend using an external mic and adding the audio onto the video post with the V60. So his approach is slightly a little bit different. He's actually recommending you using something like not that you want to, but if you do decide, let's say, to pick up something like, let's say, the Rode mic, wireless mic Go, or even the first generation wireless mic. Now, the wireless Go mic 2 offers us the option of recording onboard audio to the transmitters. So this is the receiver, the one with the display. But once you connect it to your PC and update the software, it gives you the ability of doing onboard audio recording as well as transmission to the receiver. So you can record audio directly on the wireless Go and automatically record it on your smartphone, and then maybe edit it and replace it in post. It gives you a little bit of freedom to be able to walk around. So I think that's also one of the bigger factors. But yeah, definitely, Aditya, right on point there. I appreciate you jumping in with that as well. Dude, Andrew Wallace, greetings, sir. Welcome, sir, and welcome back to the chat. Hanging out Saturday as always. Conversation is going really, really nice. Oh, hold on. I think I saw something regarding Jason's comment is, do you think the shortage of Qualcomm chips going to cause significant issues with availability? The Qualcomm chips are obviously one of the more popular ones in most markets, right? At the end of the day, any kind of shortage obviously will impact price and availabilities. When there's not enough, people will have to buy more, and of course, the material is going to be obviously of concern. We've in many ways become very pampered with the fact that we have, again, a release of a new chipset. Many devices are released. I mean, we're already in mid-March, and we have quite a few 888 processors already come out. So the question be, how can we sustain this? The shortage of processors, shortage of materials to be able to make these processors are obviously going to drive the prices a little bit. My hope is that it starts helping us focus on reusing and consistently using all of the hardware that we have, and it's supposed to just basically forgetting about a processor. Like the 870 is a great processor to work with, as like I said, because it is an upgraded slight version of the 865, which is an architecture that Qualcomm has already had to be able to build on, right? They're not inventing it. This is just literally tuning an existing one. But anytime there's a shortage of material, will always impact us as the consumer, because then those available hardwares or whatever they're able to produce are obviously going to be more premium. The one thing I would probably say, that even if we kind of put a mirror that over to the other side, is the Find X3 Pro has a very unique, and I would normally bring it up, but let me see here. See, okay, this design, and I do apologize. Oh my God, okay, too much dust, TK. What kind of channel are you running here? So here, let's see if we can get this right. So you can see it right there. See this little, the way the glass is set up around the sensor in the back. It took them 40 hours to be able to produce one piece. And it's not a high yielding process. It's always going to be affecting it. So what I would probably say is, let's hope that they find a solution to be able to make sure that supplies are there. At the end of the day, yes, the consumer obviously is going to be the one at the end paying for it, because think about it. We're the ones demanding the latest and greatest. We're the one asking for processors of that caliber. And if materials are not there, it's going to be a concern. So I hope we can figure we'll find different ways, or maybe start relying on better recycling of older processors, and maybe you reusing silicon to be able to reproduce like the materials. I'm not talking about if you're using the exact same SoC, but maybe better recycling would be also helpful. Um, Gary, I think, is answering Aditya. Yeah, definitely. A Rode mic would be very, very functional. The only difference between the first generation mic, Rode mic, and the second one, the wireless Go, is I think you actually. Oh, sorry, I take that back. I think Gary's talking about a standard Rode mic, Rode microphone, as opposed to the Rode wireless Go. So yes, absolutely. I'll jump into that. Sorry. Uh, Let me see here. Aditya chilling with the Rode mics. Yeah, Aditya is really liking the Rode mics. They're very nice. They're very, very, very. Like I said, the all three ROG Phone videos and all both of the FX3 Pro videos were all recorded with the Rode Wireless Go, and I plugged in one of my wireless, my wired, basically lav mics. So I was really running all straight on the actual unit, and they are clean, absolutely clean, very easy. And what I loved about them is they fixed the problem that I've been having for some time with my existing setup from Saramonic, which I need to figure out what it is. But I've been having a lot of distortion, a lot of interference. Sorry about that. With my camera setup when I'm recording audio, and I don't tend to hear it all the time. Like it'll happen at specific parts of the audio, and it bonks my entire section. Like whatever part, I would end up having to either go back and try to clean it as much as I can, or try to basically replace it. And then that becomes a big factor what we can and cannot do there. So always understanding and appreciating there. Um, Good question, Andrew. Hold on. Here. So Andrew says, do you think that the Sony releasing the external monitor feature for the Xperia 1 Mark II makes it harder to justify paying for the much more expensive Xperia Pro? And let's see what I think Joe was trying to answer that one. Good question, Andrew. I think the HDMI port and the build and the build is one of the only things that the one of the only things the 5II is getting that feature. So I'll answer both a little bit with that one. So yes, the Xperia 5 Mark II is also receiving the HDMI input feature, so that's going to be available on both. And I do apologize here. So those are going to be ones available on that. The difference in here, there's a little bit more into when we compare the 1 Mark II and the Xperia Pro. The build quality is different. The antenna arrays are different. The 5G and ultra wideband support is also very different. The ability of having 512 gigs of internal storage over 256 is also a different option. The fact that we have an actual dedicated port for the HDMI in is also another factor. And the last but not least is we also have a second programmable key that's present on the Xperia Pro. Now, when you look at all of these things, does that actually make the price difference between the 1II as well as the Pro? I don't think that really we can look at them in the same aspect. I don't think the Pro was intended for a consumer grade smartphone. It's intended really for more professionals. And I'm not trying to say that we're not professionals. I like to think that we all have a more of a prosumer approach to cameras. And even for most of my usage, I'm in the actual experience because we need high grade, good quality cameras like the A7S III. We need camera sensors, and we obviously use them for work. But if you weren't making videos and you weren't in the same type of need on a daily basis, I feel like the Pro is a little bit overkill in what it offers. Okay, the Xperia 1II or Mark II with the new features makes it a very compelling phone now, because of that feature as well as the Xperia 5 Mark II. Keep in mind, though, that these features or these options that you're looking into here are really intended to be augmenting existing cameras' DSLR experiences, right? You're not going to be using this to play video games on it because you could just play video games on the phone, right? So those experiences are really intended to be more for those type of things. For me, the Xperia 1 Mark II as an external display from my A7 III, not the S3, is very much a big win situation. It's a 4K panel that mirrors the display exactly, and I can see when I'm in focus. I can see the actual whatever's on my display, and all of those things are helpful. So the Pro is still going to be where the Pro goes, and I think most people or most buyers of the Pro will be more into the business side and field reporters, where the Xperia 1 Mark II will be more of what we normally go for. And I feel like it's a good combination. Sony bringing it in here is very, very nice. I wish they would be more first-party hardware made specifically to allow this function to work correctly. Because right now, what's happening is most of us are trying to scramble to figure out what method or what process works the best. For me, the what is it called? The A10 Mini that I have here worked perfectly because it connects to my PC as a webcam. The PC recognizes it as a webcam, and then it controls all of the functions. And it worked great when I did it in my demo. Juan used a different approach where he used something like the Elgato Cam Link, and that was used with the HDMI from my, let's say, A7S III or whichever camera, and then using a converter over to USB-C. So it's going to work. The simplicity of what the Xperia Pro offers, that's where reason why you're getting it there. And of course, I also feel like Sony is going to focus their support heavily to try to troubleshoot those issues more on the Xperia Pro than maybe we'll see with the Xperia 1 Mark II, because I feel like it's, again, you have to know where the setting is. You have to go into the system to turn it on for the app to show up. By default, it's not on. So it did not automatically show up with Android 11. Planned cost exceeds 20 million. Okay, so ER here. Let me see real quick. ER is jumping in with a large semiconductor chip plant can cost in excess of 20 billions in there just to keep it to kit it out. Okay, very expensive set of costs. However, in the EU, it's looking to increase market share from 10 to 20% in 2030 by 2030. So those are big numbers. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I hope after having the Xperia Pro twice, I had a really good time being able to use it twice. I had it initially to be able to launch it, then because of the B Alpha show that I worked with Sony, they were letting me play with it for a little bit more. I started to see the big difference between it and the Xperia 1 Mark II. It's not just a different version of it; it truly is a different. It's a product that Sony is truly making for the lovers of Sony photography and the simplicity of taking your smartphone when you're on the go with simple HDMI cable from your phone to your camera, and then you're auto right there. You're on a mobile tech. You're ready to go. You can live stream, do everything you want to do from the phone, and it simply is that. Xperia 1 Mark II just takes a little bit more. Davin David says, Apple isn't Apple trying to jump into Germany even more with the chip fabrication for their own modems as well? Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, dude. What I didn't realize is that we're already at an hour and 40 minutes, and I swear to God, I thought we barely started like 2 minutes ago. It's like it's a fun chat. It's always a fun chat when we have a lot of engagement, a lot of people talking, a lot of questions going on. I will say this much, but thank you, Greg, for the recommendation. I would say this: the FX3, the Find X3 Pro, in a quick 60-second kind of summarization is. It's an upgrade from what we had last year from the Find X2 Pro when it comes down to build quality, display quality, 10-bit color, as well as the cameras that we get in here. So definitely it's a good improvement. It's a slight change from what Oppo is given us from before, but this comes out with Android 11, with ColorOS 11, and of course, it gives us all of those features. So it doesn't seem like it's planning to give us that same periscope camera, but I feel like the microscope camera is very much an interesting approach that I more than likely will use over the lifespan of having this smartphone. So definitely a good choice if you're thinking about it or looking into trying to getting the best of what Oppo has to offer. The design definitely begs, especially with the mirror, the finish, begs a case. So if you do, make sure you get a good case for that. The ROG Phone 5, great gaming phone, great thermal performance over an extended amount of time when it comes down with the fan. I did get a chance to play with it since the videos that I posted went live. And I would probably say I think we should see that as an accessory that's included in the box. I think ROG should include that for the standard 5, as well as obviously since it's already part of the Pro and the Ultimate, or at least the way it's listed. So keep that in mind. I think that's the approach to look at. Asus is really making a very good push into what the ROG phone line needs to be. I think this is a true return to what the legacy of what ROG needs to give us. And my hope is that we just keep seeing more and more functional things added. The 888 is a challenge, but again, Asus didn't make the chip. Asus is working with it, and I feel like the cooler is a good option for it for consistent duration-based gaming. And if you're putting your phone in a case and you're playing with it without the air cooler, I still think it's not going to be as bad for casual gaming and still be able to do some nice long sessions. And you can control a lot of the functions within the Game Genie functionality built in to actually customize that experience, increase the touch responsiveness, the refresh rate, depending on the games that you're playing, also going to make that experience be there. And then, of course, we're almost at that time with the TKception. So if you guys would like to be able to start dropping those comments in there, we'll get that rolling. And as you guys are doing that, I'm going to throw in my last bit with the, obviously the wireless Go Mic 2. Rode makes amazing mics. Rode audio is just one of the best ones on the market. I was a big fan of the original Rode. I didn't go for the Rode. I ended up going with the Saramonic model because the approach that we got there was a 2 transmitter, 1 receiver. We had the blended audio. All of the things that I felt like what Rode was providing us, we got really good here with Saramonic. The wireless Go 2 jumps over the next. It's like Rode decided to go not 1 step up. They wanted to go 2 steps up. The built-in audio recording, the automatic audio recording of having backup audio for content creation is a gold mine. It's just, there's no way to describe it. It's literally the best situation you want to do with something that is seriously, tiny. That's one of the transmitters. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, here it is. And here's the receiver. So seriously, these 2 pieces got my setup entirely working, and it works with a smartphone. It works with a PC, with Mac, and anything. So really, they've done many, many good things with it, and I'm trying to put together the video. Hopefully, for you guys to come out probably Monday morning. That's my goal for it right now. So let's do this. I think if I'm not mistaken, let me see here. Okay, so here, Aditya, as always, kicking us off, and I'll go ahead and share screen, and let's do this. Hopefully, we can do it right. And now, yes. It always, timing is always going to be a problem for me. So thank you to everybody, obviously, for everybody joining us. Obviously, Aditya, thank you for TKception, TKR Bay, and TK Alpha Bay. I like the TK Alpha Bay. That works really, really nice. And of course, Joey B's coming in. I hope you have a great time on your trip, man. Enjoy California, enjoy the nice weather. I'm not sure how much cooler it'll be, but it is running up cold temperatures right now a little bit. ER1980, thank you very much. Always for the support. Davin Davis, as always. That's a nice one. See, Aditya plus Johiki for mods. Absolutely. Joe and I talk a lot, and Aditya and I also reach out a lot. So I will reach out to both you guys if you guys are available, and if you're willing to help. I'll be always appreciating your support. I realize I forgot. I really forget the fact that Matt is always busy, and I realize that my timing of when my show goes up. So, but we'll have to see how that goes. And then that is a nice one. TK Super Saiyan, hashtag TK Super Saiyan. Always, I feel like I try to be Super Saiyan. I aspire to reach Super Saiyan level, but it's always a challenge. You always have to kind of work at it. That's always going to be the situation. Joe Hickey, TKception, TKR Bay, TK Essentials. I like that one, of course, and the TK Alpha Bay. The TK Essentials, I think, is going to be a big factor, and I really like the approach that we see there. I'm also kind of debating if I should start, like, even though I produce the full content part of the video, but maybe break out those separate videos, like take small clips of the big video and produce those as smaller segments, and then still release those as supplemental content for the main video. Let me see here. Okay, Oliver in there, TKception as well. TKception, Skal from Sweden. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. And look at that. Thank you very much. Gary the Fireman with a super chat. Very much, beard game is strong. Thank you very much, man. Always. Fat Produce, Andrew, of course, in there. I'm like clicking different ones. Greg, thank you very much. Andrew as well. And everybody actually kind of just joining us. Aditya, of course, the TK Super Saiyan Bay. I always really appreciate you guys not only taking part of your day to hang out with me, but engaging, and of course, we see each other on many different chats, different different streams, different channels, different content. I mean, on Mondays with the SGGQA, on the best of our week, always, and everybody. ER is actually commenting, TK, you should do more shorts. I want to do more shorts. I really want to do more. The first few that I've done, I'm trying to figure out what the maybe I'll do this. I'm going to reach out to Isa. Isa's been doing shorts a lot more successfully than I am, and I want to find out what am I doing that is maybe not hitting the right spot. On some devices or some things that I've done, it took a little bit, but it did actually do very nicely. But on the S21 unboxing, that one didn't do at all. So I was kind of weirded out. I wasn't 100% sure of how, I guess, maybe to make it sure that it was working correctly. But I like the shorts a little bit more, and maybe those are also easier because much simpler to consume, and within 60 seconds, focus on one specific feature for a device and then release them in that manner. So definitely for sure. Always. Sharma is in there as well. I appreciate it, TK. Yes, TK. Leverage the shorts. Some fun community building activities, of course. But yeah, no, you guys, seriously, the TK Essentials, I did not even remotely even come close to thinking of putting that together. So the Essentials or the videos, that series is going to be very big. And like I said, my goal is to build on that. So maybe even do an example, the Find X3 Pro micro lens, the Essentials or TK Essentials, hashtag TK Essentials at the end of that. That could also be a new series that we do for shorts. Those will be really, really nice, very easy to build up. With that being said, I want to say again, thank you to everybody. Oh, dude, thank you, Joe. Always appreciated. I'll hit you up on Instagram later on, of course, and we'll get everybody set up. I do want to say thank you very much for everybody for hanging out, spending your time with us. Keep it locked in for tomorrow, because let's just say this: Matt and Sam have a very, very cool guest coming in. If you're not familiar with Val, I'm sure you guys have all kind of interacted with her at some point or another on Twitter. But she's obviously very big in playing Warzone games and so on. Regardless of her primary job, I think, if I'm not mistaken, working at Samsung. But I think they have her tomorrow as a guest, and I'm trying to seriously push for making it into a Warzone live stream, like literally run an hour game between all three of them, and they're talking, like they're chatting and doing the interviews and talking a whole bunch of stuff. But I don't think it's going to work. But I would love to see make it into a gaming session. So yeah. Oh, okay. So maybe I'm mistaken. Okay, I take that back. Aditya maybe is correcting me. I thought I read it that it was going to be tomorrow, but I could be wrong. Val is on the 28th. Okay, so take that back. Take that back. Tomorrow still show's going to go, so please make sure to catch them. But it is going to be a game. So Val will be there a week after next. So if that's for sure. And I played with her a couple of times on for Warzone. Great, really good, gamer personality, and loves basically just having fun. And I think it's going to be a great show between all of them, anyways. And of course, the SGGQA on Monday. Just average Joe tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow is Joe. My mistake. So tomorrow is going to be Joe, and next week it'll be Val. Yeah. So sorry, Joe. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, so Joe and I've seen you every once in a while on Warzone, and I haven't had a chance to hit you up as much. But I think we need to set some time between you, myself, and Matt, and try to get some games under our belts, and trying to rank up to to that level. So we'll have to see how that goes, David. But anyways, thank you very much for the support. Be safe and stay safe. And as I always say, kind of connect with somebody, say hi to somebody, contact somebody you haven't talked to for some time, and hopefully things are going to get better and are getting better for you already. So if you haven't seen that, hopefully just understand that the light is getting brighter and we are getting closer to somewhat of a new normal and things kind of working out. Even here in LA, we're starting Monday, they're going to allow partial indoor dining. That has been out for a year, literally over about a year now that we haven't had that. So it's a massive move, but hopefully in the right direction. Okay. With that being said, take care. Again, I'll see you guys next week on another episode of Saturday Morning with Tech, and probably even on Thursday with the best of our week with Juan, catching up on a lot of other things going on in our best of our week. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everyone.